Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Charlie Cobb. I'm the president of the Committee for Economic Development. And on behalf of our trustees and our staff, I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's lunch and forum. The topic is an important one. Are America's economic policies sustainable? A Business Leaders Summit on Our Future. It is always an honor for CED to welcome Pete Peterson, and it is a special honor for me once again to have the opportunity to introduce Pete, who is also the Committee for Economic Development's longest-serving trustee. Pete has led a distinguished career in the public and private sectors. He has served as the CEO of a number of major companies, including chairman and CEO of Lehman Brothers, and he is a co-founder and was the chairman of the Blackstone Group. Pete Peterson is also a leader in the nonprofit world, having served as the chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations, the chairman of the New York Federal Reserve Bank, founder and president of the Concord Coalition, and the founding chairman last year of the Peterson Institute for International Economics, and then, of course, last year when he founded the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, which is devoted to securing America's future by addressing critical challenges threatening the nation's well-being, including large and growing budget deficits, the dismal national and personal savings rate, and the ballooning national debt that endangers the viability of Social Security, Medicare, and our economy itself. In Pete's public sector career, he's also well known as having served as the Secretary of Commerce. In fact, Time magazine referred to Pete as the most powerful Secretary of Commerce since Herbert Hoover. I'll let you explain that, Pete. As many of you know, Pete is also a noted best-selling author and has written 5 books, including Running on Empty and Gray Dawn, which are 2 extraordinary works. Pete's newest book I have here. It's available in the bookstores. It's called The Education of an American Dreamer, and it is receiving very strong reviews, including this past weekend's New York Times and also The Economist, which recently described Pete as a crusader for a noble cause. And Pete, just yesterday afternoon, I happened to wander into a Barnes & Noble, and I saw your book prominently displayed right next to a new biography of Abraham Lincoln. My only question for you is whether Ted Sorensen, your good friend, has had a chance to review this book as well. Pete, we are very proud at CED to be one of your foundation's first grantees, and as we champion business statesmanship, the involvement of businessmen and businesswomen in public policy, we do so recognizing that this is a concept that you first launched almost 5 years ago. So we salute you for your leadership in public policy, your inspiration as an individual, and your support for CED. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Pete Peterson back to CED.
Thank you so much, Chuck. I deeply appreciate your referring to my books. I desperately need the revenues, and every little bit helps. You're mentioning Ted Sorensen, as Bill McDonough and others around here know he's one of my favorite roasters. About my last book, he said that once you put it down, you will not be able to pick it up. My Lehman colleagues, they were colleagues in the rather special sense that Brutus was a colleague of Caesar's, used to play games at the Christmas party in which the young partners would insult the old partners. And they used to play the game Karnak, which you may remember. Here are the answers. What are the questions? And 1 year the answers were 100,000, 99,999, 1, and 0. what are the questions? The questions were, how many books did Peterson print? Second, how many did he sign and give away? Third, how many were bought? And finally, how many were read? So I'm here today to discuss some fiscal and economic unsustainables that our foundation is spending much of its time and money on. I see Bob Hormats is here. He was with me in the Nixon White House. It's probably an oxymoron to refer to a Nixon humorist, to many of you at least, but we had one called Herb Stein, who used to say, if something's unsustainable, it tends to stop. Or he said, if you don't like that one, if your horse dies, I suggest you dismount. I think my basic thesis is we keep riding this horse as though we can ride it indefinitely. So the foundation is focusing on challenges that I call undeniable, unsustainable, and yet politically, as yet, untouchable. And we're going to focus on three of the unsustainables. The first is entitlement reform. All in all, there's about $45 trillion of unfunded liabilities and promises in the various entitlement programs. The American public is aware of about $11 trillion of public debt, but they're unaware of the liabilities and promises that are 4 times larger than that. We're trying to figure out ways of dramatizing this because the numbers are so mind-numbing that we don't think most Americans quite grasp them. If you think of this as debt per household, it's about $485,000, which is about 4 times the size of the private debt per household. If you think of it in terms of raising taxes, you'd have to roughly double the taxes to pay for the full benefits. In terms of trying to finance these kinds of obligations, it's about 4 times the GDP, which strikes me at least as pretty unfinanceable. The second challenge that we're worrying about and concerned about are the unprecedented balance of payments and the resulting savings deficits. The foundation asked the Peterson Institute, many would claim it's very poorly named, but I'll leave that to others, to do projections of what the foreign debt position of the United States would appear to be if we continue on our current path. The numbers are so boggling that I won't ruin your lunch with them, but I will read you what they said in conclusion, that the projected path is so unsustainable and dangerous that a crisis would be virtually certain to occur long before the U.S. reached such a painful point of reckoning. So to me, few challenges are more central to creating a sustainable level of foreign debt than reducing the government's dis-savings or negative savings and increasing personal savings. And finally, the subject that I tend to talk about for a few minutes, the ballooning healthcare costs that threaten not only our competitiveness but our economy. As many of you probably know, we spend about twice as much per capita as the other developed countries without any appreciable difference in health outcomes. If you look at the percent of the GDP differential between us and the developed countries, depending on the country, it's about 6 to 8% more of the GDP than they spend.